Jack here, JBF Music and Guitar Lessons. I'm back with one of these critique videos. So essentially this is an informal analysis. As a disclaimer right from the get-go, I will be pausing, I'll be talking about what's going on. So if you just want someone that's going to watch this and not really comment anything, or if you want to watch the original, this probably isn't for you. On the other hand, if you want some insight into the musicality, the music theory behind it, and some other stuff from a live musician's perspective, then stick around. On that note, if you want to see more of this thing, do the old subscribe and enable notifications thing, leave a like and a comment if you enjoy it. If you don't like it, feel free to smash the dislike button. If you can tell me specifically what you don't like, I can take it on board. I can at least try and do something about it. If you want to see the licks, concepts and ideas that we talk about this in action, you can find them with the aptly named timestamp, licks, concepts and ideas. Now, I've not heard this band at all, this is my first time listening to them, but I was recommended them from a reaction video I did for Bandmaid, which you can check out with the eye up there. So I think this is another kind of all-female Japanese rock band. I think they might veer slightly more towards metal. I was told to check out the live versions of songs, and I think Holy War seemed to be the most popular one. Any suggestions or recommendations, fire them down there. But yeah, far too much talking from me, let's just get into it. Slightly surprised from the get-go. I was expecting something a bit more kind of like metal and a bit heavier. We've gone to this twin lead thing. I was a huge Iron Maiden fan. This is up my street. I like this kind of thing. I've done loads of stuff on Iron Maiden, particularly Dave Murray, which you can check out with the lie up there. To break it down, what's happening is you basically got one guitar doing one thing, another doing the same thing, but it sounds to me like it's a third higher. So you get this lovely kind of twin lead guitar harmony thing. And then there's a fantastic little vocal, you know, the kind of power metal thing going up to a high note. So I think it's all going to kick off here. Yeah, this is a bit more about what I was expecting just from the kind of comments I got before. So this is just like, I'd kind of class this still as a power metal. You can disagree with me if you want, but so far this is kind of reminding me kind of like maybe like Halloween or Gamma Ray or something like that. Not quite in the over-the-topness of Dragon Force, but we do have some spectacular double bass drum going on here. So you hear that kind of underneath. That's the kick drum being played by the drummer there. It takes a lot of stamina to hit it hard enough to make a good sound, and also to keep that for a full song, let alone a full set. So this would be really interesting if you can correct me in the comments here. This sounds like she might have been classically trained or potentially did opera. There's a lot of kind of quite unexpected low end and power to her voice. This is someone that's really singing from their stomach. They're really getting their diaphragm in there. But wasn't expecting that. I thought it would be a bit more. But generally with kind of power metal type things, the singers are tenors, and tenor males, while they can hit the high notes, they don't have the same kind of rich low harmonics that baritones tend to have. So an example of a baritone singers for me that kind of have like kind of richness in their voice with Devin Townsend, I suppose. He can kind of hit the tenor notes but with a kind of baritone, and that's an extreme example of it. That was cool. So it sounded like there's a little tapping riff that they're all playing in unison there. Getting kind of Hammerfall vibes from this as well. So there's a progression they're using there that's really cool because it uses a chromatic note to kind of build up. I'll probably break that down in the aforementioned licks, concepts, ideas section so I don't derail this too much. But it's a really, you get it in, Yngwie Malmsteen used it a bit, and you get it in some kind of power metal, but you don't get it in maybe metal quite as much. But it's a really cool compositional tool to get this kind of sense of something building. And a great pre-chorus, great to use in a pre-chorus like it seems they've done here. I'm guessing this is us into the chorus. So there, you might have felt it more than anything else, but just like a few bars back, something felt different. It seems like they've done a key change. They kind of shifted the tonal center. Yeah, this is a really common thing in kind of power metal songwriting to make, because to make it kind of harmonically a bit more diverse. And Dragon Force are a great example because they tend to have a very rhythmically dense thing. It tends to be like lots of chicka 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 chicka, like we're getting here, you know, the kind of repetitive guitar 16th note things to give it that driving force. The downside of that is you kind of lose the dynamics in the sense of making things kind of heavier, making them softer, making them faster, making them slower. So a great way to kind of compensate or give some other sense of dynamics is to change the key, which they've done here. It's a cool little, really, I don't know if I'd quite call it a solo, it's maybe more of a kind of lead fill, so it reminds me a bit of, in fact, the entire Judas Priest Painkiller album. There's loads of great little guitar fills in there, just kind of add to the narrative. I kind of reacted to the, or analysed, I suppose, the isolated guitars from that, which you can check with the eye up there. It's a pleasure to listen to. That was a really cool way to come into this next section as well. They're all kind of playing reminds me of the Gundam Wing, what's it called, Just Communication. I've covered the instrumental version of that, which I'll link to with the eye up there. Same sort of rhythm, but it's a cool thing to do if you get all your band to lock in this one rhythm, particularly there if it's before a section change. So you probably heard the key change again there, and dun 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 dun. So that dun. Really good pitching as well as having this the kind of power behind it. I don't think I've heard her hit a note wrong or slightly sour, which is difficult to do, particularly in live situations. You don't always have, you know, there's a whole plethora of things that can go wrong. You might not have the best mix, you might have a sore throat from singing day in day out, you might have had one too many late nights or too many drinking sessions, you might have a cold. There's all these things that can go wrong. So when people can get up on stage, and particularly when you're doing these kind of long sets, if you're doing 2 or 3 hours, there's a lot of brain fog comes in by the end of it. If you can get up and consistently do it, it's remarkable. It's really amazing stuff. What I'm liking about this riff is it's almost like something straight out of the 80s, like the Sunset Strip. It's like they've gone to like a Motley Crue riff, but there's a cool little chung chung chugga chung chung chugga after it that's got this slightly more contemporary, almost industrial vibe that I think gives the riff this extra kind of quality. Okay, I'm going to have to pause it there before I forget stuff. There's a lot going on with those solos. I kind of wanted to see them through before kind of stopping and commenting on it. First one was a lot more melodic. I think that she was leaning into the Phrygian dominant voices. It's kind of evil sounding metal scale. Again, this is something I covered, you can check out there if you want a much more in-depth view of it, not to derail this too much. And then in contrast we have the second guitarist where she's doing more of a kind of shreddy solo, but it's probably more technically demanding, so there's quite a lot of alternate picking there. There's the kind of tapping again. There's some really quite nice string skips. I think they were towards the end there, where the sounded like she was playing, kind of hopping over the string, which in and of itself is a more difficult thing to do, particularly when you're picking every note. And then in a kind of like a Iron Maiden or Hammerfall fashion, I think we're getting a twin duo, or even Dragon Force, a twin duo solo. So let's have a listen to that. So these bits here, the what they're doing is an arpeggio. So they're basically outlining the chord that's being implied by the bass guitar. It sounds to me like they're playing probably in thirds, which is just a really nice harmony to get a sweet sound. And they're following the chord changes that the bass is implying. So here, or, you know, just as I say that, the bass starts to take a solo as well. And in this bit here, we're just doing more of a kind of standard third harmony. It'd be interesting to know if there's any backing vocals or additional vocals on the studio version of this song. Hit me up in the comments if there are, because I can kind of like, you know, when you listen to music and you start to almost hear things in your head over the top of it, I'm kind of hearing kind of, again, kind of Hammerfall style, like almost kind of gang vocal stuff. I really enjoyed that final harmonized bend that they ended on. That's just a great kind of slightly kitsch but fun way to end out a song. Cool, there are a lot of concepts and ideas I could break down from that song. Hopefully I'll cover ones that you guys are interested in though. Cool, so the first thing to look at here is that pre-solo kind of riff thing going on. So we're using this open A string to really kind of chug in. And I think this is actually all fourths. The way I heard it first was... But I think it's a bit more dissonant. I think they're just using what you'd call fourth dyads. It's something Ritchie Blackmore uses a lot, like the Smoke on the Water riff, And the reason fourths are kind of cool is they've got a bit more edge than a power chord. To explain in terms of theory what's going on, when we're playing these two notes here, on the 5th fret on the D and the G strings, we're essentially suggesting a C, a C5 power chord, right? But all we've done here is like essentially invert the power chord. So instead of the C being here and its 5th, the G being here, we've moved the C up here. These notes are both Cs. So you get a slight more edge to it because it's got the 5th in kind of the bass rather than the root. The other advantage to them is if you have something like kind of Strange Kind of Woman or those sorts of riffs. it's easier to move them around than it is move around a power chord shape. Of course you can do the spider thing, the sustain trick. If I've got any cards left, I'll link to that up there in a bit more detail. But yeah, the cool thing here is also the syncopation, as well as using these kind of edgy fourths. So you have this, right? And just to clear up the fourths, all I'm doing is it's the same fret on the D and the G strings. So first we've got the open A, the 5th fret, D and G, 4th fret, D and G, back up to that 5th, chug in on the A string again, we're up to the 7th fret, again on the D and the G, and you slide that down to the 4th fret, give that a bit of vibrato and try and keep the vibrato controlled. If it's a bit too wild or unruly, it'll kind of lose a bit of edge, so you want to slide down, keep that nice and controlled. Then you've got just the same things before, 5th fret, and then this rhythm here. So to clear up, I'm not fretting any extra notes, I'm just using this finger to mute out these strings here, just in case I hit them or something like that. And you can also then use this finger to mute a bit like Dimebag again if I've got any cards, so you can check out what I'm talking about with the eye up there. But the rhythm here, so the way I'm playing this is a down, 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 up, up, down, 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 up. That's the way I've had the most success in keeping the rhythm kind of tight. So what we're kind of doing, I suppose, in the terms of theory is we've got A, we're in A minor here, we're basically going A, C to B, then a D to a B, back to the C, B, then the chug on the A. But it's more of a riff than it is a chord progression, so I think these are more just kind of giving that nice kind of nasty edge. Alright, first of all I'm going to look at the rhythm and break down the theory there. So this is that kind of chromatic thing that I mentioned in passing before. So we're starting on a C chord. I can't totally tell how this is voiced. It might just be a power chord. It could be a kind of standard C shape. So either 3 to 5 on the A and the D strings, or you've got a 3 on the A string, 2 on the D, and potentially even the open G as well. A bit like the open C chord, if you're familiar with that, but just a partial bit of it. So you've got a C, then we're going to go to an F, then it goes to a D, and a G. If you played those in a more kind of standard power chord way, right, and what we're doing essentially, I think I'd need to reanalyze this, but this is often used as a way to modulate keys, which we kind of touched on before. So we're starting off in C, and we're ending up in G. They're 5th apart, so they're really quite common keys. There's only 1 note difference between them, so it's quite easy to transition between them, and this is a really cool way to do it. So we're starting off in key, playing the C, like I said. What the bass is doing, however, is the bass is playing an E, right? Which makes sense because a C chord consists of a C, an E, and a G. So the bass is playing this E, but down underneath the chord. So essentially what we have is, you call it a slash chord. So it's a C, then there'll be a slash, then an E. And all this means is whatever note is behind the slash is being played in the bass, in this case by the bass guitar. So if I put the E in here just using the open E string, you can hear it's got a slightly different feeling. Rather than being a root position chord, we've inverted it. So it's got this third in the bass here. And this works so well because it creates a kind of sense of tension, and it wants to move somewhere. Where it really wants to move to is the F, which is great because this is the next note that the bass is playing. We're playing an F chord here. F is F, A, and C. So this makes total sense. The bass is playing a note in here. Next we move to a D. This is where things kind of start to get quite interesting. In the key of C major, it would be a D minor, but here we're playing a D major. And because the bass has moved from an E to an F, almost an F sharp, this F sharp is D's major third. So a D consists of a D, an F sharp, and an A. So again, what we've done here is the third is in the bass. Now, the cool thing here is the guitar part is also kind of echoing that to really kind of lean into this chromatic movement. So this shape that we have here, where we're playing the 2nd fret on the E and the 5th fret on the A. It might not look like it, but this is in fact a D chord. You'd call this a D/F sharp, because the F sharp is in the bass. We've gone from that C, which is that slash E as the bass, to an F, to this D, slash F sharp. And then it resolves really nicely because, again, you can probably hear the tension in this chord, just like there was in that first one. It wants to move somewhere. What wants to happen is this note wants to move up a semitone here, and it does. And it gives us this nice G chord here. Now, because we played a D major chord, it's kind of implying a D dominant 7, and this gives an even stronger pull. So we've got that C slash E up to the F. Then I'm going to voice this as a D7 just to kind of prove a point, but still put this F in the bass here. And a lot of kind of tension, a lot of build up, and then the release going to the G, which is our new tonic, our new home since we've modulated key. Okay, so next up is the lead part that complements that. Now this is quite low in the mix, but I think I've got it right. There's two slight things might be happening. Either she's just picking the notes, she might be trend picking them, but what I think is happening is she's picking each note twice, sorry. I think that's what's going on, but just a lot of palm muting to really get a kind of rhythmic percussive sound. And I'll play the riff slowly first, and I'll break down the theory behind it and why it ties in so nicely to what's going on as well. So we got this. So you got the 7th fret on the A string, hitting that twice. Then we've got this recurring motif that you probably noticed there, 10th fret on the D, 9th fret, back to 10. And we're just picking all these notes twice, and that whole thing happens again. So next we do almost identically, almost exactly the same thing, but what you're going to do is play this note here. So you're going to play the 8th fret instead of the 7th on the A. Probably guess what's happening, same thing except you slide up here, so we're using the 9th fret on the A, but these fingers are doing exactly the same thing on the D string. The last one changes a bit, so we're up to the 10th fret on the A, and going between 12 and 10 on the D string, but again you're just hitting these all 2 times. So what we're doing here is essentially echoing that great bass line, that E, F sharp, G, but up an octave. So we've got the E here, then we move to an F, to an F sharp, to a G. Now these notes here that are going on are adding in some cool kind of tension and release as well. So what we've got, if we kind of analyse it, we've got an E here, and we've got a C here. At this point we're playing over a C chord, C, E, G, it's a C chord, so these notes are both in the chord, they sound great. This note here is a B, which is C's major 7, so it's adding a bit of tension, but what this note really wants to do is go back up to here. So whenever it goes down to here, it's kind of adding to this sense of movement. So it's almost like a kind of a meta thing. We've already got movement from the chord progression, and within that they're creating this kind of further sense of kind of movement and progression, and it wants to go forward. When we move up to here, we're playing over the F, so we've got an F here, and then we've got a C here. An F chord is an F, an A, and a C. So we're playing the root and the 5th, which is great, they're part of the chords. This note here that we're playing, this B is a sharp 4, which you can hear is pretty tense, but again, all it's doing is it's wanting to go back up to the 5th to again create this kind of sense of movement within the overall movement of the chord progression. After that, we're up to this F sharp. We're playing over a D major at this point. Now, a D major is a D, an F sharp, and an A. So this note is spot on, it's great, it's the 3rd. We're playing this note here, which might sound a bit odd to begin with because it is a C, but this is in fact a flat 7, a D's flat 7th. So this is why I kind of talked about, and why I even voiced a dominant 7th chord when we looked at the chords themselves, because that's what this note is, because it's the flat 7th, it's really strongly hinting at a D7 chord. The note we're using for tension this time is D6, and again, that's where the 6 wants to go. It wants to go to the 7, and the flat 7th wants to go somewhere as well, so we're creating this kind of meta sense of movement in between. So just to clear that up again, you've got the 3rd, flat 7th, and the 6th. And when we go to the G, we kind of abandon this little motif because it's going to sound too tense going between those notes. But what we do have is the G, we have here a D, which is its fifth. The other note that makes up a G is a B, so you've got a G, a B and a D. We're not playing the B, we're in fact playing a C, which is the fourth. So this adds in a bit of tension, but not quite as much as before. But again, this note isn't happy, it wants to go back up to here. So although it might look like we're just doing some weird chromatic thing going up, there is a lot of theory going on, a lot of method behind the madness, if you want to think about it that way. Alright, a very brief look at the rhythm guitar here, and then we'll look at that awesome string skipped lead. So we're just playing a D5 power chord. So you got 5 on the A, 7 on the D, 7 on the G, down to an E power chord. So just open E, 2 on the A, 2 on the D, then up to an F sharp power chord. So 2 on the A, 4, 4, and you just... And what we're outlining there, because of the key we're in at this point in time, although we have taken quite a wild journey through a different set of keys, is we've got a D major, an E major, and an F sharp minor. This is important because it ties into what the lead guitar is doing. Okay, and to break down this monster lead part going on here. So it was string skipping going on. She's not picking it as much as I thought, but it's still quite a difficult lick to do. To clear things up, my little finger is significantly shorter than my other ones here, so I don't like using it much because in terms of hammering on, you kind of want to use the tip of your finger as much as possible for a nice strong sound. When you're using loads of distortion, you can get away with using the pad of your finger more. But the reason I tend to not use it and use my third finger, I get a bit of stick at it for doing this in the comments section, but it's just a better sound and I can do it more easily. So you might prefer to use your little finger, you might prefer to use your third finger, and to be honest, whatever works for you, just go for it. If someone's giving you jip about it sounds good, it really doesn't matter. But the notes we're doing here, I'll break down how to play it, then we'll look at the theory. So we've got this 14th fret, pulling off to the 12th, pulling off to the 10th on the E string, so you're just hitting that once. String skipping over to the D string, where we've got the 14th, pulling off to the 13th, pulling off to the 11th. Then you're going to hit this 11th fret and hammer back on. And then come back up the same shape here. So we're going to pick this up 10, 12, 14. So you got... Okay, so to clear it up, we're picking the E string once, pulling off, and again, popping over to the G string, picking this once, pulling off again, hitting this once more, hammer on, over to the E, pick it, hammer on, hammer on. And it's this same pattern that we're essentially taking up through the scale. So we move the shape up to the 16th fret, we're going to pull off to the 14th and the 12th, we're then going to go 16 on the G, 14, 13, and we're going to hit the G string again, the 13th fret, hammer on to the 14, to the 16, over to the E, 12, 14, 16. So this is in triplets, and you get that rolling kind of 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So here it goes to a minor chord, so we change the shape a little bit. Going 17, pull off to 16, pull off to 14, over to the G, we're going to hit this 18, pull off to the 16, pull off to the 14, hit the 14 again, hammer on 16, hammer on 18, over to the E, where we're picking the 14, hammer on 16, hammer on 17. Then it goes into some tapping thing, which in all honesty I haven't broken down. So best of luck to you if you want to crack on with the rest of the solo yourself, but the theory going on here is quite cool. So what we're doing essentially is it's like before with the other lead line where we're really outlining the chord very heavily. So it might not look like a chord at all to the untrained eye, but essentially we have an arpeggio here. If you're familiar with Paul Gilbert's playing, he uses these all the time, these string script arpeggios. If I have any cards left, I'll link that up there. Okay, so I do need to qualify what I said a little bit here. Well, we are sort of outlining arpeggio. It's not a strict arpeggio because there are other notes. So to tackle those, we've got an E here, which is D second. We've also got a G sharp here, which is D's sharp fourth, so it's got a slight Lydian vibe if you know your modes at all. I'm going to ignore those for a wee second and we'll look at the other notes and explain why I'm saying it's kind of like an arpeggio. So we're starting on this note here, which is an F sharp. A D consists of D, F sharp and A, so this is its third, F sharp. We're pulling off to D, which is the root. We're down to an A here, which is the fifth, and we're pulling off to an F sharp here, which is D's third. So out of these 6 notes, 4 of them are just an arpeggio of a D major chord. The same logic kind of applies when we shift the shape more or less up a tone. We've got here a G sharp, down to an E. At this point we're playing over an E major, an E is an E, a G sharp and a B. We're starting on a G sharp, which is the 3rd, down to an E, which is the root, down to B, which is the 5th, and then we've also got the 3rd here, at G sharp, right? They're the notes that we put in, the kind of the additional notes. Again, we've got a 2nd, which is an F sharp this time, and what we've also got here is a perfect 4th this time, when we're playing that A there. So if it was just a straight arpeggio, you'd have those notes. We've got these notes added in, this one and this one. But because we're kind of starting and ending on, and again, 4 of the 6 notes are from the arpeggio, it's just, you can hear the chord progression without the chords even having to be there. The final one that we're on here is an F sharp minor. So an F sharp minor consists of an F sharp, an A, and also a C sharp. We start on an A, we've got an F sharp, in terms of the arpeggio, so 3rd, flat 3rd, root, to the 5th here, which is the C sharp, and back down to that flat 3rd. Again, that's the A. So the kind of additional notes we've got here, again, we've got a 2nd, so we've got a G sharp there, and the one we've got here is a B, so that's a 4th in terms of the extra intervals. But again, 4 out of the 6 notes we play are from the arpeggio. Cool, I'm just going to play through that more slowly because it is at a blisteringly fast tempo, so let's go through it. Enjoyed this, that's the playlist there. If you want some screaming power metal lead lines, check out the video there. Hit subscribe to keep up to date with the channel, but take it easy guys, have a good one.